The world changed as he flew north. The air thinned, sharpened, and began to bite. Dorne's heat fell away behind him like a discarded cloak, and the cold returned with familiar cruelty, crawling under his collar and into his bones. Sunsorrow did not like it. The dragon's breath smoked thicker, its wings beating harder, impatience turning to irritation as the wind turned from warm to knife-edged. Below, the sea was steel-gray and restless. Ice floes drifted like pale corpses, bumping and turning, creaking softly as if whispering to one another. Jon watched them and thought of Eastwatch's message, dead in the water, and felt his stomach tighten. Water was supposed to be a barrier. Nothing living crossed it easily in winter. Nothing dead cared. White Harbor rose out of fog like a promise made by stubborn men. The lighthouse speared the sky, its top wrapped in mist. The harbor walls were dark stone. Inside the bay, ships moved. Manderly sails bright against the gray, ordered lines of masts like a small forest that had learned to float. Jon felt the city's attention before he heard it. Heads turning, pointing, that strange, collective hush that spread as a shadow passed over roofs and docks. Sunsorrow's wings threw wind across the water, and the bay answered with rippling waves and startled gulls. The dragon dipped lower, circling once. Jon saw men on battlements lift crossbows, then hesitate, then lower them again as if sanity caught up to courage. He saw dockworkers drop ropes and stare. He saw a horse rear and scream, its handler dragged in the mud. He could land outside the walls safe, open. He could avoid panic. But time was not a luxury. The North needed to see this now. Not rumor, not ink. Fire in the sky, undeniable. Jon leaned forward, pressing intent into muscle and breath. "Easy," he murmured. Sunsorrow rumbled, annoyed, and angled toward the shore. The landing was violence made controlled. Sunsorrow's claws struck frozen mud, cracking it like brittle glass. The impact sent a shudder through the earth. Wind rolled outward, carrying the smell of smoke and sea and the raw animal heat of dragon flesh. Men stumbled back. Torches flared wildly. Snow flurries spun in the sudden gust like frightened birds. Jon slid down, boots sinking slightly. His breath steamed in front of his face. The cold was a relief and a curse at once, familiar enough to make him feel like himself again, cruel enough to remind him what he was racing. Sunsorrow lowered its head, amber eye half-lidded, as if bored by the small commotion. Smoke curled from its nostrils and drifted over the ground. A few men coughed and retreated, eyes wide. The gates of White Harbor opened cautiously, not thrown wide but eased, as if the city feared the hinges would snap from the strain of the moment. A column emerged. Guards first, spears and shields and heavy cloaks, fur rimming their helms. Behind them came Lord Wyman Manderly in a sled-like chair borne by stout men. His bulk wrapped in layers of wool and fur, cheeks pink from cold and effort. His eyes were sharp despite the softness of his face. He stopped at a respectful distance, staring at Sunsorrow the way a man stared at the sea in storm, knowing it did not care that he was brave. "Jon Snow," Wyman said, voice carrying, wet and steady. "Or should I say, Your Grace?" Jon stepped forward. He did not bow. He did not play at southern courtesy. "Lord Wyman," he said, "I need ships. I need warehouses. I need men unloading grain and steel the moment it arrives." Wyman's eyes flicked to the dragon, then back. "That," he said slowly, "is not a sentence I expected to hear from a Stark." Jon's mouth tightened. "I'm not here to impress you," he said. "Eastwatch has fallen. The wall is bleeding. Dorne has sent supplies. Aegon Targaryen is sending men. I need the North ready before the dead arrive." Murmurs rippled through the guards. Some crossed themselves. Others spat into the mud as if superstition could be insulted away. Wyman's gaze sharpened at the name Aegon, then at the word Dorne. "Dorne," he repeated, tasting it like strange wine. "You truly mean to feed the North with southern grain?" Jon nodded. "And with southern ships," he said. "If the roads freeze, the sea becomes the only road left. You have docks. You have captains. You are the North's mouth to the world. Use it." Wyman studied Jon for a long moment. Then his eyes softened just slightly. "You look tired," he said quietly. Jon almost laughed at the understatement. "I am," he admitted. "But tired men still fight." Wyman's lips curved faintly. "So they do," he agreed. Then his voice hardened into command. "Open the warehouses," he barked over his shoulder. "Clear the docks. Ready every cart and every horse that can stand the cold. If the South has sent food, I'll not have it rot on my pier because men stand gaping." He looked back at Jon, eyes bright now with purpose. "And bring your friend," Wyman added, nodding at Sunsorrow with a mixture of awe and stubborn disdain. "Away from my gates before my horses die of fright." Jon turned and placed a hand on Sunsorrow's muzzle. "Move," he murmured. The dragon exhaled smoke as if insulted, but it rose, claws scraping, and padded away from the walls, settling farther out where the wind could carry its heat without choking men. Wyman watched the movement, then looked back at Jon. "Winterfell?" he asked. Jon's gaze went north. "I fly there," he said. "The convoy will dock here. I want your best men escorting Princess Arianne Martell inland when she arrives." Wyman's brows lifted. "A Martell in the north," he said. "That will warm hearts." "It will have to," Jon replied, "because cold won't." The convoy arrived like a miracle and an insult. White Harbor's water was darker than the sea at Sunspear, heavier, colder, carrying ice like broken teeth. Snow fell in steady curtains. The Martell warships cut through it with disciplined lines, banners snapping stiff in the wind. The heavy supply ships followed like laden beasts, their decks crowded with men hunched against cold, faces raw, hands cracked. Arianne Martell stood on the lead ship's forecastle, her armor reinforced with fur lining now, a northern concession that offended her pride less than she'd expected. The cold had stopped being a novelty the first night. It had become a presence, relentless, intimate, crawling into joints and making even breath painful. Davos Seaworth moved along the deck with the grim efficiency of a man who refused to let winter win by inconvenience. He shouted to dockhands as they approached, voice cutting through wind. "Ropes ready," he bellowed. "You drop that crate. I'll feed you to the sea myself." On the pier, Lord Wyman Manderly waited with a cluster of northern soldiers. Fur cloaks turned them into dark shapes against the white. Their eyes were wary, not hostile but careful, the way men were careful around unfamiliar blades. As the gangplank thudded down, Arianne descended with controlled grace that barely hid exhaustion. Her boots hit northern wood. The cold bit her ankles. She lifted her chin anyway. Wyman's gaze traveled over her, taking in the Martell sun and spear on her shoulder, the foreign cut of her armor, the calm fire in her eyes. "Princess Arianne Martell," he said, voice formal. Arianne inclined her head. "Lord Wyman Manderly," she replied. "My father thanks you for receiving Dorne's ships." Wyman's mouth twitched. "The North thanks you for not letting us starve," he said, blunt as a hammer. Then he looked past her, squinting toward the low hill where Sunsorrow sat like a dark mountain, smoke curling in snow. "And that," he added, "is the strangest thing I've seen in my long, fat life." Arianne's eyes followed his gaze. Her chest tightened despite herself. The dragon's presence was comfort and torment. Jon was here, somewhere beyond the pier's noise. Yet the dragon still felt like a wall between her and him. Davos stepped onto the pier behind her, rubbing his hands together, face set. "Less gawking, more unloading," he snapped at anyone within earshot. Northern dockhands surged into motion, hauling crates, rolling barrels. Dornish sailors joined them, hands numb, curses in two languages mixing. The smell of grain rose, warm, earthy, precious. It smelled like survival. Arianne watched a northern child in a patched cloak stare at a crate marked with Martell seal. The child reached out as if to touch it, then pulled back, eyes wide, as if afraid the South might bite. Arianne's jaw clenched. She stepped forward and crouched, pulling a small dried orange from her pouch. hard as stone in this cold, and placed it gently on the crate where the child could see. The child stared, then snatched it and ran. Wyman watched her, expression unreadable. "You'll find northern hearts stubborn," he said. Arianne straightened, eyes cold and bright. "So are Dornish hearts," she replied. "That is why we're still here." Wyman's gaze sharpened with approval at the answer. "You'll go to Winterfell," he said. Arianne nodded. "As soon as we've secured the supplies," she said. "And as soon as I see Jon Snow." Wyman's mouth twisted. "He's already flown," he said. "He said the north needs to see fire in the sky." Arianne's throat tightened, but she kept her face composed. "Of course he did," she murmured, half pride, half frustration. Snow fell harder. The sea hissed against the pier, and above the docks, the shadow of wings moved once, slow, as if the dragon itself reminded everyone. Winter has not stopped fire. Not yet. Winterfell met the dragon with silence first. Snow fell thick enough to swallow sound. Coated battlements clung to direwolf banners, softened stone into pale shapes. Guards on the walls shouted, then stopped, their voices dying in their throats as a shadow swept over the yard. Sunsorrow descended, wings beating hard, snow blasting outward in violent spirals. The dragon landed with a crack that shuddered through the courtyard, claws biting ice-slick stone. Heat rolled out, and for a heartbeat the falling snow turned to mist around its body, steaming. Men froze. Some knelt without thinking. Others backed away with hands on weapons that felt suddenly childish. Jon slid down, boots hitting snow-muddied stone. His breath came out as steam. His face was raw from cold wind. His bandages were stiff. He barely had time to straighten before Sansa Stark came running. Her fur cloak flew behind her. Her hair was braided tight. Her eyes were bright with the kind of emotion she refused to show in front of lords. She stopped only when the dragon's head shifted, amber eyes narrowing. Jon lifted a hand. "Easy," he murmured to Sunsorrow, then turned to Sansa. For a heartbeat, they simply stared at one another, as if the years between them had become a wall too high to climb with words. Then Sansa stepped forward and gripped his forearms, careful of the bandages, careful of pain, and pulled him close. "You're alive," she said, voice tight. Jon swallowed hard. "So are you," he replied. Sansa's gaze darted up to the dragon, then back to Jon. "And that is real," she said, and there was awe and terror tangled in the same breath. Jon's mouth tightened. "It's real," he said, "and we need it." Tormund Giantsbane stood a few paces away, staring as if he'd found a new god to insult. His red beard was crusted with snow. "I told you," he muttered, voice loud enough to carry. "I told you he'd come back with something ridiculous." Sansa shot him a look that could have killed a lesser man. Tormund grinned and lifted both hands in surrender. Jon's gaze swept the courtyard. Faces he knew, faces hardened by cold and war. Men who had followed him before. Men who now looked at him as if he were something else entirely. "War Council," Sansa said, already pulling him toward the great hall with urgency she could not hide. "Now, before the lords start inventing their own stories." Jon glanced back at Sunsorrow. The dragon settled, wings folding, steam curling from its nostrils. It looked content for the moment, as if the cold stone of Winterfell was merely another perch. Jon turned back to Sansa, voice low. "Eastwatch is gone," he said. Sansa's face tightened. "I know," she whispered, "but hearing it from you makes it worse." Jon held her gaze. "Aegon is sending men," he said. "Dorne is sending supplies by sea. Arianne Martell is coming." Sansa blinked once, hard. "A Martell in Winterfell," she said. "The old gods have strange humor." Jon's mouth twitched, then hardened again. "This isn't humor," he said. "This is survival." Sansa's grip tightened on his arm. "Then let's survive," she said. And behind them, in the courtyard, a dragon breathed smoke into snow, turning winter's silence into something that felt like a warning. Arianne learned the north the way you learned a wound, by living in it, The Kingsroad was a white scar cutting through forests of black pine. Snow piled at its edges like a slow burial. The wind was not the dry, sharp wind of Dorne. It was wet and heavy, crawling into seams, making armor feel like a curse. Her horse snorted and stamped, miserable, breath streaming. The northern mounts did not look happier, but they endured with the stubbornness of creatures bred for cold. Behind her, wagons creaked under the weight of grain and dried meat hauled from White Harbor. Northern drivers hunched over reins, faces raw, hands wrapped in cloth. Dornish sailors, chosen to escort the cargo inland, walked alongside with stiff legs, eyes narrowed against snow. Their accents sounded strange out here, like a song played on wrong strings. Villages watched them pass, huts half buried in snow, smoke thin from chimneys, eyes hollow in faces pinched by hunger. Children too quiet, too still, staring at the wagons as if staring could make the grain spill open. Arianne's jaw clenched each time she saw it. In Dorne, hunger existed, yes, but it wore different clothes. Here it wore frost. It wore silence. It wore the way men kept their pride even when their ribs showed. They passed a hamlet where a woman stood in a doorway holding a baby wrapped in rags. The baby's face was red from cold, its cry weak. The woman did not beg. She simply watched with eyes like stone. Arianne reined in. The northern escort's leader, an older man with a gray beard and a Stark pin, looked back, wary. "Princess," he said, as if uncertain what southern kindness might do. Arianne swung down, boots crunching in snow. The cold hit her legs like punishment. She ignored it. She walked to the wagon and pried open a small crate of dried fruit meant for the road. Her fingers were numb. The wood resisted. She forced it anyway. She carried a bundle of dried oranges and figs toward the doorway. The woman's eyes widened slightly. No gratitude, just disbelief that anyone would give without demanding. Arianne held the fruit out. "For the child," she said, voice low. The woman hesitated, then took it with trembling hands, clutching it like treasure. Her lips parted as if to speak. No words came, only a shaky exhale. Arianne nodded once, then turned back to her horse. The northern escort leader watched her carefully. "You'll empty the wagons before Winterfell if you do that too often," he warned. Arianne's gaze snapped to him, sharp. "If Winterfell eats while these people starve," she said, "then we've already lost." The man stared, then slowly nodded, as if he just realized something about southern fire. "As you say," he murmured. They rode on. As the day darkened, the road grew worse. Snow began to fall heavier. The wagons creaked louder. Men cursed into scarves. Arianne's fingers ached from cold even through gloves. She lifted her gaze toward the north, toward the unseen wall, toward death that moved without hunger. Dorne's sun felt like a dream now, but the people here were real, and the war ahead would not care where she had been born. Winterfell's great hall was heat and shadow and judgment. Arianne stepped inside with snow melting off her cloak, water dripping onto stone. The warmth hit her like an unexpected hand. So did the eyes, dozens of them, northern and hard, weighing her the way Dorne had weighed Jon when he first arrived in Sunspear. Sansa Stark stood near the high table, posture perfect, face composed. She looked like Winterfell itself, cold stone pretending it did not feel. Jon Snow stood beside her, black and familiar, his presence a strange anchor in this foreign hall. For a heartbeat, Arianne's chest tightened with relief at the sight of him. He was here. He had made it. The dragon had not swallowed him. The north had not buried him. Then she forced herself into stillness. Relief was private. Politics was public. She approached with measured steps and inclined her head. "Lady Sansa Stark," she said. "Princess Arianne Martell." Sansa's eyes were clear, assessing, and not unkind. "Princess," she replied, "Winterfell welcomes you." A murmur ran through the lords. Some shifted as if the word Martell tasted wrong in their mouths. Arianne heard it and did not flinch. Jon stepped forward, bandaged hands visible. "She brought grain," he said, voice carrying. She brought steel. She brought ships. Remember that before you decide what you think of her." The murmur tightened, then eased, slightly. Hunger was a powerful persuader. Arianne's gaze flicked to the benches where lords sat stiffly. She recognized suspicion. It wore the same shape in every kingdom. One man, Lord Glover, leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "Dorne never cared for the North before," he said bluntly. "Why now?" Arianne turned her head toward him slowly, meeting his gaze without softness. "Because the dead don't stop at your borders," she said. "Because winter doesn't ask permission. And because if the North falls, the South sun will eventually set too." Silence fell. Sansa watched her, and Arianne felt something shift. Respect, cautious and earned. Tormund Giantsbane barked a laugh, loud and sudden. "She talks like she's been cold before," he said, amused. "Give her a horn of ale and a fur cloak and she'll be a proper northerner by tomorrow." A few men chuckled nervously. The tension loosened. Arianne did not smile. "I don't need to be a northerner," she said, voice calm. "I need you alive." Jon's mouth tightened, something like pride flickering. Sansa's eyes softened, barely. Sansa lifted her hand. "We will talk," she said, "but first food and rest. The convoy must be secured. The wagons must be guarded. Winterfell will not lose grain to thieves when the dead are taking cities." Arianne inclined her head. "Agreed," she said. As servants moved, as bowls were brought, Arianne's gaze found Jon again. He looked worn, more worn than when he'd left Sunspear. His eyes held too much sky and too much death. He stepped close enough for only her to hear. "You made it," he murmured. Arianne's voice was low. "I told you I would," she replied. Jon's gaze held hers for a heartbeat, and in that heartbeat the hall disappeared. The lords, the banners, the war. Only the fact remained. They had brought Dorne to Winterfell. They had forced the realm into one room. Then Jon exhaled and pulled back, duty reclaiming him like a chain. "Council," Sansa said again, louder now, and the hall, full of wolves and a Sunspear princess, turned toward war. The map looked like a dying thing. Ink lines trembled in torchlight. Pins marked keeps. Red scratches marked places already lost. Eastwatch was circled hard enough to tear parchment. Someone had drawn crude waves beside it and written dead in water in angry strokes. Jon stood with both hands on the table, shoulders tense. Sansa sat at the head, calm and sharp. Arianne stood to Sansa's right, posture straight, eyes scanning every mark as if she could burn meaning into them by force. Tormund leaned on a bench, unimpressed by maps, impressed by the fear behind them. Maester Wolkan hovered with quill and shaking hands. "We fortify the neck," Lord Glover argued. "Hold them there. Let the South deal with whatever comes after." "They don't tire," Jon said, voice flat. "They don't starve. They don't fear. If you give them time, they stack bodies until they climb over walls." Tormund snorted. "They'll stack you too if you're stupid," he added cheerfully. Sansa's gaze cut across the table. "We don't retreat," she said. "We delay and bleed them while we evacuate what we can. The North is not only castles. It's people." Arianne's eyes sharpened. "The sea can take some," she said. "White Harbor can move refugees. Ships can move grain back south if we must. Dorne knows sea roads. Use them." Some lords stiffened at the thought of fleeing by southern advice. Pride was stubborn even when death knocked. Jon's voice dropped. "I'm going to the wall," he said. Sansa's head snapped up. "Now?" she demanded. Jon nodded once. "I need to see it," he said. "I need to know what we're facing, and Sunsorrow needs to feel the cold there. Learn what it means to fight in it." Arianne's jaw tightened. "You go alone?" she asked. Jon's gaze flicked to her, brief apology buried in it. "I can't take you," he said. Arianne's fingers curled on the table edge. "I know," she replied, voice controlled. "But that doesn't mean I like it." Sansa leaned forward, eyes hard. "If you die up there," she said, Winterfell loses more than a king. It loses its spine. Jon's mouth tightened. Then I won't die, he said. Tormund laughed once, approving. That's the spirit, he said. Tell death to get in line. Maester Wolkan cleared his throat, voice trembling. Dragonglass, he said, gesturing to the black arrowheads on the table. We have some, not enough. If the south has more, we will send for it, Arianne said immediately. Dorne will strip old caches if we must. We will trade gold for obsidian. We will. A sudden roar rolled through the stone. Not Sunsorrow's, but distant thunder from the north, imagined or real. The hall went still as if the castle itself listened. Jon straightened. We dig trenches, he said. We line them with pitch. We create kill zones. We put dragonglass in every hand that can hold a blade. And we stop arguing about pride. Sansa's jaw clenched. And when the dead reach Winterfell? She asked quietly. Jon's gaze went inward for a heartbeat, seeing blue eyes in darkness. Then he looked up. Then we burn them, he said. And we pray fire is enough. Arianne's voice was low. Prayers again, she murmured. Sansa's eyes flicked to her. Not prayers, Sansa corrected. Work and steel, and whatever gods still have ears. Jon reached into his cloak and set Arianne's ring, the small ember stone, on the table. Dorne is here, he said, and Aegon's men are coming. The realm is finally moving. Tormund leaned in, eyes bright. And a dragon, he said, grinning. Don't forget the dragon. Jon's mouth tightened. I won't, he said. He turned toward the doors, toward snow and the waiting sky. Get the ravens ready, he ordered. If I see the wall crack again, Winterfell will know before the scream reaches you. The wall felt different from the air. Even from miles away, Jon felt the cold thicken, heavy as stone. The wind carried a smell that wasn't only snow or salt. Carried rot wrapped in ice. It carried the wrongness of death that refused to settle. Eastwatch lay below like a wound torn open and left to freeze. Ships were wrecked in the harbor. Masts snapped, hulls crushed, frozen into jagged ice as if the sea had decided to become stone mid-breath. Bodies were everywhere, half buried in snow, twisted against walls. Some were still, some moved. Blue eyes glowed among wreckage like cruel stars. Sunsorrow's wings beat hard against bitter wind. The dragon's breath smoked thick. It rumbled low, irritated, sensing danger not as fear but as offense. Jon leaned low, gripping tight. Down, he murmured. The dragon descended, landing on a stretch of ice-hard ground beyond the worst of the wreckage. Heat blasted outward, turning nearby snow into steaming mist. The sound drew attention immediately. Whites turned as one. They moved with horrible patience, climbing over broken beams, dragging themselves through ice. Some wore knights watch black. Some wore sailor rags. One still had half a face, its jaw hanging wrong, blue eyes burning. A ragged line of living men huddled behind a broken barricade. Knights watched survivors, faces hollow, hands shaking around spears. Cotter Pyke stood among them, looking like a man carved from spite, ice in his beard, blood crusted at his cheek. His eyes widened at the sight of the dragon. Then he barked a laugh that sounded half like sobbing. About bloody time, he roared. Jon slid down and strode toward the barricade, sword drawn. Cotter Pyke, he said. Pyke stared at him, then spat into snow. You brought a dragon, he said, voice raw. Good. Now burn these bastards. Whites surged closer. Jon turned to Sunsorrow. The dragon inhaled. His throat glowed bright. Jon felt the heat swell in his chest like shared breath. Small, Jon whispered. Sunsorrow snarled smoke, impatient, but obeyed the intent. A spear-thin stream of flame lanced out, cutting through the first rank of whites. They ignited instantly, collapsing into ash and melted flesh. The stench hit like a fist. The fire carved a line, not a flood, enough to clear a path without turning the whole harbor into a furnace. More whites climbed over burning bodies, relentless. Pyke shouted. "Them on the left," he bellowed, pointing at a cluster dragging themselves from water, limbs stiff with ice. Jon swung his sword into a white skull as it lunged. Bone cracked. The body fell, still twitching. Jon stabbed again, then again, moving with the brutal efficiency of habit. Sunsorrow roared behind him, furious at restraint, and blasted another narrow line of fire, turning the left cluster into burning wreckage. Ice hissed and cracked. Steam rose in ghostly pillars. For a heartbeat, the living line held. Then the cold deepened. Jon felt it, a sudden pressure, as if the air itself thickened into glass. The flame sputtered slightly at Sunsorrow's nostrils. The dragon's head jerked, annoyed, confused, as if the world had insulted fire. Pyke's face went pale. "Them?" he rasped, voice dropping, eyes fixed beyond the whites. Jon followed his gaze. On the far shore, where broken ice met snow, tall pale shapes stood silent as stone. White walkers. The Night King did not hurry. He stood on an icy ridge as if it were a throne, pale armor catching the weak light, edges sharp like frozen blades. Around him, white walkers waited in silence, their faces still and cruelly calm, blue eyes glowing with quiet certainty. Below them, whites moved like a tide, mindless, endless. Jon felt something in his gut turn to iron. He climbed back onto Sunsorrow in one harsh motion, ignoring the pain in his hands. The dragon's muscles coiled under him, eager now, sensing a true enemy, something that made its blood flare, something that offended its dominance. Sunsorrow roared and surged forward, wings beating hard. Jon guided it above the white tide, toward the ridge. "Now," Jon whispered. Sunsorrow inhaled deep, full this time, no thin thread, a roar of heat building in its throat. Flame erupted. A river of fire poured toward the Night King. For a heartbeat, the world looked like justice. Then the fire met something unseen. A wall of unnatural cold rose like a breath. The flame struck it and screamed, hissing, steaming, breaking into ragged tongues that fell apart in the air. Ice did not melt cleanly. It resisted, spat steam and frost. The fire did not vanish, but it weakened, distorted, as if the cold ate its strength. The Night King did not flinch. His blue eyes remained fixed on Jon, unblinking, as if he were watching an insect buzz too close. Sunsorrow banked, roaring again, offended. Jon clenched his legs, forcing control. "Again!" he shouted, voice torn by wind. The dragon unleashed another blast. The cold wall rose again, and the flame shattered into steam and sparks, scattering like broken glass. Jon's stomach dropped. Fire was not enough. Not cleanly. Not against this. Below, whites kept moving, crawling over burning patches as if pain did not exist. White walkers lifted spears of ice slowly, their movements calm, precise. One spear flew. It cut through air like a shard of winter itself, striking the ice near Sunsorrow's foreclaw. The ice exploded upward in jagged spikes. Sunsorrow jerked, wings beating wildly, startled more by the cold sting than the impact. Jon felt the dragon's fear for the first time, not terror, but something close. A predator recognizing another predator. He leaned low, voice harsh. "Up!" he commanded. Sunsorrow climbed, beating hard, pulling them away from the ridge. The Night King's gaze followed, cold and patient, as if he knew the sky could not save Jon forever. Jon looked down and saw Pyke's men fighting desperately, their line buckling as whites pressed harder. He saw burning corpses clawing forward. He saw the wall looming behind, ancient ice, massive, shuddering faintly like a living thing in pain. The Night King lifted one hand. The whites surged faster. Jon's throat tightened. He could burn the tide. He could buy minutes. But minutes were not victory. Minutes were just more time to die. He turned Sunsorrow in a wide arc, aiming away from the ridge, away from the cold wall. He would not win here today, but he would not let the wall fall without warning. Winterfell heard the south before it saw it. Hooves beat the frozen road. Armor clinked. A disciplined column emerged through falling snow. Men in foreign gear, cloaks dusted white. The faint gleam of coin and steel even under winter's dull light. Golden Company soldiers. Not 1,000, not an army, but enough to make every northern guard tighten their grip. Sansa Stark stood on the gatehouse with torchlight flaring at her shoulder. Arianne Martell stood beside her, fur cloak pulled tight, eyes narrowed as she studied the newcomers. The cold had reddened her cheeks, but it had not dulled her fire. Tormund Giantsbane scowled, spitting into snow. "Southron sellswords," he muttered. "Smell like wet pride." The column halted. A captain stepped forward, helm under his arm, face hard with travel. He bowed stiffly, formal, careful. "In the name of King Aegon Targaryen," he called, voice carrying. 300 men as promised. Scouts follow. Supplies follow behind as roads allow. Murmurs rose along the wall. Suspicion and relief tangled. Sansa's jaw clenched, already weighing risk against necessity. Arianne's voice was low, for Sansa alone. "Let them in," she said. "Watch them, feed them, use them." Sansa's eyes flicked to her. "And if they try to take control?" she asked quietly. Arianne's mouth curved, sharp. "Then they learn what northern walls do to men who forget they are guests," she murmured. Sansa's lips tightened, something like grim agreement. She lifted her hand. "Open the gates," she ordered. Iron groaned. The gates began to part, slow, reluctant, as if Winterfell itself hated letting strangers in. At that moment, a raven landed hard on the snow-dusted stone near Sansa's feet, wings frantic. A small scroll hung from its leg, wax smeared, ink blurred. Sansa snatched it up and broke the seal. Her eyes moved across the words. Her face went still. Arianne leaned closer, reading over her shoulder. The message was short, brutal, written in a hand that looked like it had been dragged through panic. "Eastwatch lost. White walkers at the sea. Fire resists. Wall shuddering. Prepare." Sansa's breath left her in a slow, controlled exhale that sounded like steel being drawn. She lifted her gaze to the horizon, to the north, to the snow-filled sky. Arianne's fingers curled inside her cloak. "Jon?" she whispered, not as prayer, but as anger at the world. Below, the Golden Company men marched into Winterfell's yard, boots crunching, eyes scanning the ancient stone. On the walls, northern guards watched them with spears ready. And above it all, unseen beyond clouds, a dragon's roar echoed faintly in the distance. Far off, warning and furious. The realm had finally begun to unite. Now it had to prove it deserved the chance. They brought Ser Rolly Duckfield into the Great Hall not to honor him, but to measure him. Firelight threw warmth onto stone that refused to soften. The northern lords sat in benches like carved judgment. Maester Wolkan clutched a scroll, knuckles pale. Arianne stood at Sansa's shoulder, close enough that her presence felt like a blade held ready. Sansa did not waste words. "Your orders," she said. Rolly Duckfield's gaze flicked to the lords, then returned to Sansa. 300 men, he said. "Scouts on the road behind us. Supplies where wagons can push. More by ship if your harbor can receive them." "Aegon Targaryen," Lord Glover muttered, disdain and hunger tangled. "A southern prince sends scraps and expects gratitude." Arianne's eyes snapped to him, cold. 300 men in this cold is not scraps, she said. "It is skin in the game." Sansa's hand lifted, quieting argument. Her gaze stayed on Rolly. "Did Jon Connington send you?" she asked. Rolly's jaw tightened. "King Aegon sent me," he said carefully. "Jon Connington did not want it." That landed like a stone in a pond. Sansa's eyes narrowed. "And why did Aegon send you?" she pressed. Rolly hesitated just a breath, then chose truth. "Because he received a message," he said. "Eastwatch, dead in the water, the wall shuddering." He saw fear in his men, and he decided he'd rather be a king of something living than a king of ashes. Arianne's mouth tightened in grim approval. "Good," she said softly. Sansa studied Rolly for a long moment. "If Aegon orders you south again," she said, "what do you do?" Rolly's gaze held steady now, more soldier than envoy. "If the dead are real," he said, "then there is no south to return to. I stay where the war is." A murmur ran through the benches, some suspicion easing, replaced by the cold respect Northerners gave men who spoke plainly. Tormund barked a laugh from near the hearth. "He's got one good thought in him," he said. "Maybe the cold knocked it loose." Sansa did not smile, but something in her eyes softened, a fraction. "You will quarter your men in the outer keep," she said. "You will eat what we eat. You will train with our smiths on dragonglass points. You will not wander Winterfell alone." Rolly Duckfield bowed stiffly. "As you command." Sansa's voice lowered. "And if one of my people disappears," she said, "I will hang your captain's cloak from my wall." Rolly did not flinch. "Understood." When he was dismissed, he turned to go, boots loud on stone. The Golden Company men followed, heads slightly bowed against the hall's weight. Arianne leaned toward Sansa, voice low. "He's not lying," she murmured. "Not about this." Sansa's gaze stayed on the door long after it shut. "Truth doesn't stop death," she said quietly, "but it helps you aim." Outside, the wind howled. Winterfell tightened its grip. Night in the north was not darkness. It was pressure. Sansa and Arianne walked the battlements while snow drifted down in slow sheets, soft enough to feel gentle until it layered thick and heavy and made roofs sag. Torches burned low, their flames bending with the wind as if bowing to something stronger. Below, the Godswood was a darker shape within the castle, trees skeletal in winter, the heart tree a pale ghost behind branches. Arianne looked at it and felt the hair on her arms rise. Not fear, not exactly, but the sense of being watched by something old that did not care for princes or dragons. "You have your own gods," she said quietly. Sansa's gaze stayed forward. "They were here before kings," she replied. "They'll be here after us, if anything is." Arianne's mouth tightened. "Dorne has old gods too," she said. "We just learned to hide them behind suns and spears." Sansa glanced at her, and for a heartbeat the distance between them narrowed. "You miss the heat," Sansa said. Arianne almost laughed. "I miss feeling my fingers," she admitted. "But I don't miss pretending heat makes you safe." The wind hit harder and their cloaks snapped. Arianne's breath steamed. Sansa's face looked carved from pale stone in torchlight. "You hate waiting," Sansa said. Arianne's eyes narrowed. "I hate helplessness," she corrected. "Waiting is just the shape helplessness wears when you are too proud to admit it." Sansa's mouth tightened. "Pride doesn't keep children warm," she said softly, and the words carried a bitterness that had nothing to do with weather. Arianne looked down toward the yard, where Golden Company men shuffled awkwardly through snow, trying to pretend they were not shivering. "You trust them?" she asked. "I trust fear," Sansa said, "and I trust the fact that they're alive. Men who want to keep living will follow whoever gives them a chance to do so." Arianne's gaze drifted north, beyond Winterfell's walls, beyond sight. "And Jon Snow?" she asked, and she hated the way the question sharpened her voice. Sansa's expression shifted, something like sisterhood, something like warning. "Jon always runs toward the fire," she said, "even when the fire is ice." Arianne's hands curled inside her gloves. "He can't fight this alone," she said. Sansa's eyes stayed forward, unblinking. "He never has," she replied. "He just forgets that sometimes." Arianne stopped at a battlement gap and stared out at the snow-choked world. "If he dies," she said, voice low, "Dorne will still fight." Sansa turned to her then, eyes sharp. "And if he dies," she said, "the North will still fight, but we will be wounded." Arianne met her gaze and felt the strange, reluctant recognition of another woman who had been used as a piece and refused to stay one. "Then we don't let him die," Arianne said. Sansa's mouth tightened into something close to a smile. grim, cold. Then, she agreed, we prepare to do what women always do, hold the world together while men throw themselves at monsters. The torches hissed, snow fell like ash, and somewhere beyond the horizon, the real night moved without hurry. Eastwatch tried to hold on to them as if it could. Whites surged across broken ice in a tide of black hands and blue eyes, clawing over beams, slipping, rising again without care. Cotter Pyke shoved 2 men toward the dragon with a snarl, his face raw with cold and rage. "Gio!" he roared. "Don't you dare die here just to make me look brave." Jon grabbed Pyke by the collar and hauled him up. Pyke fought for a heartbeat, pride, habit. Then his boots found scale, and he clung like a man clinging to the last plank in a storm. 2 other knights watched survivors scrambled up behind them, hands bloody, faces hollow. Sunsorrow's body shifted, muscles coiling, wings flexing with angry impatience. The dragon's amber eye flicked toward the ridge where the Night King stood, and Jon felt the creature's fury spike like heat. "Up!" Jon shouted, not caring if the word carried. Sunsorrow launched. Wind slammed into them. Snow became knives. Eastwatch dropped away beneath, the white tide shrinking into writhing darkness. On the ridge, white walkers lifted ice spears with slow precision, their movements calm as prayer. One spear flew, cut through the blizzard like a shard of the moon. Jon felt Sunsorrow twist. The spear grazed a wing membrane, tearing a line through it. The dragon roared, pure rage and pain, and beat its wings harder, climbing through the storm with violence that made Jon's stomach lurch. Pyke screamed something incoherent, half curse, half laughter, clinging with numb fingers. "Them bastards can throw," he rasped. "I don't like that." Jon pressed low, gripping tight, forcing calm into his body like a command. "Hold," he muttered, and he didn't know if he meant himself or the dragon. Below, Eastwatch was already lost. More whites spilling over walls, more blue eyes moving through wreckage. The wall loomed beside it, ancient ice shuddering faintly as if alive and sick. The Night King watched them go. His blue gaze followed Jon upward through the storm, patient as death itself. Jon felt that gaze like a hand on his throat, and the feeling did not fade even as they climbed into thicker cloud. Sunsorrow burst through the worst of the blizzard into thinner air, wings beating unevenly now, wounded membrane flapping. Jon's jaw clenched. A wounded dragon was a danger to itself. A wounded dragon could fall. Pyke spat over the side, breath ragged. "You said fire," he panted. "You didn't say fire wasn't enough." Jon's voice was hoarse. "It's enough to kill the dead," he said. "Not enough to kill what commands them." Pyke stared at him through ice-crusted lashes. "Then what kills them?" he demanded. Jon looked north, only white cloud and cold, and felt the answer settle like iron. "Steel," he said. "Dragonglass. Valyrian." Pyke laughed, broken and sharp. "Good," he rasped, "because I've got plenty of hate left." Sunsorrow roared again, furious at the cold, furious at pain, furious at a world that dared resist fire. And Jon Snow held on, carrying warning in his bones. Castle Black did not know what to do with a dragon. Its yard was built for men and horses and hard routines, not wings that blotted out sky. When Sunsorrow descended, the air filled with steam and smoke, and men on the ground went still as if the world had paused to watch itself change. Edison Tollett came running, cloak flapping, face pale beneath his humor. He stopped short when he saw the dragon's wounded wing, the torn membrane, the way cold mist clung to scale. "Jon Snow," he said, and his voice cracked. "You've brought company." Cotter Pyke slid down first, boots hitting stone hard. He staggered, then steadied himself with stubborn spite. "Don't stand there like a cow," he barked at the stunned watchman. "Get me a drink and a bloody fire." The men moved then, instinct, habit, fear turned into motion. Someone shoved a cloak into Pyke's hands. Someone else dragged the surviving brothers toward warmth. Their faces looked like skulls under skin. Jon slid down, hands shaking with cold and strain. He strode toward Ed, eyes already scanning the wall. It loomed above them like a god's spine, massive, white, ancient. But it was wrong now. Cracks ran through the ice in long, jagged lines, dark seams like veins. The wall shuddered faintly, not from wind, but from something deeper, pressure, impact, a slow, persistent battering. Ed followed Jon's gaze and swallowed hard. "It's been doing that," he said quietly, "all night." Sometimes the ice screams. Jon's stomach tightened. "Eastwatch is gone," he said. "White walkers are at the sea. They're raising cold walls that break fire, and they can throw spears that can wound a dragon." Ed's face went whiter. "That's cheerful," he managed, because Edison Tollett's humor was armor even when armor was thin. Pyke staggered up beside them, eyes bloodshot. "Them pale bastards are watching," he growled. "They let the dead do the work, like lords." Jon's jaw clenched. He looked up again at the cracks. "How long?" he asked Ed. Ed's throat worked. "If it keeps cracking like this," he said softly. "Not long." Jon turned, voice sharp. "Evacuate," he ordered. "Send every brother who can still walk south. Send ravens to Winterfell. Tell them the wall is failing." Ed nodded, terror swallowed by obedience. "I," he said. "I, Lord Commander." He caught himself. "Old habit." Jon's mouth tightened. "Just do it," he said. Sunsorrow rumbled behind them, irritated, wounded wing flexing. The dragon's breath steamed thick in the cold, and the heat around it made nearby snow melt into slick patches. Jon looked at the dragon and felt dread settle. If the Night King could wound Sunsorrow once, he could do it again. And if Sunsorrow fell, Jon shoved the thought away. He turned back to the wall and listened. Somewhere deep inside it, the ice made a sound like a slow heartbeat cracking. They flew south before the sun finished dying. Pyke clung behind Jon like a burr, grumbling curses into the wind, refusing to be left behind in Castle Black's routine death. He demanded a sword, demanded a drink, demanded to see Winterfell with his own eyes. Jon had given him none of the first two and all of the last. Sunsorrow's wounded wing beat unevenly. The dragon compensated with sheer force, muscle straining, anger fueling flight. Jon kept his body low, intent steady, refusing to let the dragon taste panic in him. Below, the north stretched white and endless. Forests like black scars, rivers frozen into pale snakes, villages half buried in snow. On the Kingsroad, a thin moving line crawled south. Refugees, carts, bundled shapes dragging their lives behind them. Even from this height, Jon felt the weight of that movement like grief. Pyke craned his head and spat into the wind. "So this is what you saved," he shouted, voice ripped away by the sky. "A lot of cold and stubbornness." Jon did not answer. He watched the line of refugees and thought of how many would be swallowed before they reached safety. As the sky turned blood red at the horizon, Winterfell rose ahead, dark stone against white, smoke from chimneys thin and desperate. The castle looked small from up here, and that thought made Jon's stomach tighten. Small things were broken easily. Sunsorrow roared once, the sound rolling over forests like thunder. Below, heads turned upward, tiny figures pausing mid-step, as if the roar itself forced them to remember the world was bigger than hunger. Pyke barked a laugh. "That'll keep them warm," he shouted. Jon's mouth tightened. "It'll keep them awake," he muttered. Winterfell's walls came closer. Torches flickered on battlements. The yard below stirred as men rushed out, seeing the shadow, preparing for panic and awe. Jon pressed his hand against Sunsorrow's neck ridges, feeling heat and life. "Easy," he murmured again, shaping the dragon's descent with breath and muscle. The wounded wing flapped once, harsh, then steadied. Snow rose in spirals as Sunsorrow dropped into the yard. The dragon landed hard, claws cracking ice. Steam surged, men stumbled back, and Jon Snow, wolf with fire, returned to the heart of the north with a Night's Watch commander clinging behind him and death close on his heels. Cotter Pyke did not know how to whisper bad news. He slammed a dagger into the map where Eastwatch lay inked, the point punching through parchment. "Gone," he snarled. "Gone like a drunk in a brothel fire." Maester Wolkan flinched. Several lords muttered prayers. Tormund grinned faintly, grimly entertained by Pyke's volume even as fear tightened the room. Jon stood beside Sansa and Arianne, hands on the table, voice low. "White Walkers are at the sea," he said. "They're directing the dead. And they can raise cold walls that weaken dragonfire." The room went still. Sansa's eyes narrowed. "Dragonfire fails?" she asked, and the words sounded wrong in her mouth, as if fire had always been the answer in stories. "It doesn't fail completely," Jon said. "It kills whites. It burns bodies. But against the Night King, against the cold they bring, fire breaks. It hisses. It turns to steam." Arianne's jaw clenched. "Then what kills them?" she demanded. "Dragonglass," Jon said. "Valyrian steel. Anything that carries that old bite. We need more," Pyke spat. "And we need it yesterday," he barked. Ser Rolly Duckfield stood near the door, cloak dripping meltwater, face tight. He had the look of a man realizing he'd marched into a story that didn't care about money. "My men can scout," he offered, voice controlled. "We can ride for obsidian caches if you name them." Davos stepped forward, eyes sharp. "Dragonstone," he said immediately, like a man pulling a blade he'd been hiding. "It's full of dragonglass. I've seen it. Enough to arm every fool in Westeros if we can get to it." Sansa's gaze flicked to him. "That's far," she said. Arianne's eyes narrowed, calculating. "Sea road," she said. "White Harbor to Dragonstone. Warships escort. We can do it." Several northern lords stiffened at the thought of relying on southern ships again. Pride twitched like a wound. Jon's voice cut through it. "Pride can freeze," he said. "We can't." Sansa's jaw tightened. "Then we send ships," she said. "We send men. We send ravens. We strip the realm of every weapon that can kill ice." Arianne's gaze held hers. "And we keep feeding your people," she said. "Because a starving army is a dead army before the dead arrive." Pyke jabbed a finger toward the map's north edge. "The wall is cracking," he snarled. "I heard it scream. It won't hold." Silence landed hard. Jon looked at Sansa and saw the fear she refused to wear. He looked at Arianne and saw anger shaped into steel. He looked at the map and felt time slipping like snow through fingers. "We choose the ground," Jon said quietly. "We choose where we bleed them." Sansa's voice was calm, deadly. "Winterfell," she said. Arianne's eyes sharpened. "Then Winterfell becomes a trap," she replied. "Not a tomb." Tormund's grin widened. "Now you're talking," he said, delighted. "Let them come to the wolves." Jon's gaze went inward for a heartbeat, seeing blue eyes in storm. Then he nodded once. "Build," he ordered. "They. Arm burn, and get me dragonglass." Outside, snow fell heavier, and the castle listened like a beast preparing for impact. Far to the south, winter was only a rumor, but fear had already found its way into stone halls. Qyburn worked in a room that smelled of herbs and rot masked by perfume. His hands moved with quiet precision, preparing death in small, elegant forms. Needles fine enough to hide in hems, vials clear enough to look harmless, powders that could turn a breath into drowning. Cersei Lannister watched from a chair, wine in hand, expression calm in the way of a woman who had stopped pretending she was good. Ser Robert Strong stood behind her, silent and helmeted, a reminder that even death could be taught to obey. "They go north," Cersei said softly, as if the words offended her. "My enemies gather like rats around a fire." Qyburn did not look up. "Rats burn," he murmured. Cersei's smile was thin. "Then burn them," she said. "But not all at once. Not in a way that makes songs. I want absence. I want a princess to cough once and fall. I want a wolf girl to drink tea and never wake." Qyburn lifted a small box, plain wood, innocuous. Inside, a needle rested in velvet. This will look like winter, he said. Like weakness. Like fate. Cersei's eyes gleamed. Fate, she repeated, amused. Men always blame fate when women plan. A hooded figure waited near the door, face hidden. Cersei's gaze slid to him. You will go, she said. You will find the Dornish princess. You will find the Stark girl. You will leave no lion in your mouth when you die. The figure bowed. Qyburn placed the box into the assassin's hands like a gift. Cersei's gaze drifted to the shadow jars along the wall, wildfire sleeping green. And if the dragon comes south, she murmured, then I will show them what fire truly is. Qyburn's smile was almost gentle. Everything burns, he said again. Cersei stood, skirts whispering. Then let the North believe it has hope, she said. Hope tastes sweetest right before it dies. The assassin vanished into the corridor like a swallowed shadow. And King's Landing kept breathing, unaware that the cold had already begun to reach for it. Winterfell received strangers every day now. Refugees, messengers, men selling salt and needles and cheap wine in hopes of trading for bread. War turned every road into a vein, and Winterfell into a heart beating too hard. The trader came at dusk, hood drawn low, cart creaking under small goods, cloth, dried herbs, trinkets that looked harmless. He kept his head bowed, posture humble, the posture of a man who knew humility was safer than pride near wolves. Arianne noticed him because she had learned to notice everything. She stood on a stairway overlooking the yard, fur cloak tight, eyes scanning like a hawk. Something about the trader's movement was too smooth, too controlled. Fear moved in jittery ways. This man moved like purpose. Sansa stepped into the yard with a torch, guards beside her, her presence making men straighten instinctively. Ser Rolly Duckfield stood nearby with 2 Golden Company soldiers, their eyes sharp, hands near hilts, the cold making them more alert than comfort ever would. The trader bowed deep. My lady, he murmured. Goods for the castle. Winter prices. Sansa's gaze swept the cart. Her eyes paused, just a fraction, on a small wooden box nestled beneath cloth. Plain, unlabeled, too carefully placed. Open it, Sansa said. The trader hesitated. A heartbeat. Enough. Rolly Duckfield moved without thinking, stepping in, hand snapping to the trader's wrist. Open it, he repeated, voice rough. The trader's other hand moved, fast, toward his belt. Arianne was already moving down the stairs, dagger drawn. Rolly shoved the trader back hard. The trader twisted like a snake, trying to slip free, but a northern guard slammed a spear but into his ribs. The trader grunted, breath leaving him. Sansa's torchlight caught his face for a moment. Eyes too calm, too cold. Arianne reached the cart and ripped the cloth away, snatching the box. She cracked it open with her dagger. Inside, velvet, and a needle thin as hair. Arianne's stomach clenched. Sansa's face went still. Poison, she said, and the word was flat. The trader lunged then, desperate, trying to bite a vial hidden in his mouth. Rolly Duckfield's gauntlet slammed into his jaw, cracking teeth. The vial fell into snow and shattered, releasing a sharp, bitter smell that made men recoil. Arianne seized the trader's chin, forcing his face up. Who sent you? She hissed. The trader's lips curled in a smile that looked like death. A queen, he rasped. Sansa's eyes hardened. Cersei, she said. The trader laughed once, then tried to swallow blood and poison both. He convulsed, eyes rolling back, body going limp. Arianne let him drop like trash. Rolly Duckfield stared down at the corpse, face tight. He would have killed you, he said quietly, to Sansa, to Arianne, to the room itself. Arianne's voice was low. Then he chose the wrong castle, she said. Sansa's torch shook slightly in her hand, not from fear, but from anger. Double the gate checks, she ordered. No one enters without being searched. No one. Arianne closed the box and held it like a promise. And we send a raven south, she said. Let the lioness know her teeth are dull in the snow. Above them, the wind howled, Winterfell held its breath and then tightened its grip. The wall did not fall with a single clean scream. It broke the way old ice broke. Patiently, then all at once. Near where Eastwatch had been, the ancient face of the wall shuddered in a blizzard so thick the world looked erased. Cracks that had been seams became wounds. The ice groaned, deep and terrible, a sound like a god's spine snapping. Then a section collapsed. A mountain of ice tore free, crashing downward in slow, unstoppable violence. Snow exploded outward. The impact shook the earth. The air filled with powdered frost so thick it turned day into white darkness. When the dust of snow settled, there was a gap. Not a small breach, not a crack a man could squeeze through. A gaping wound wide enough for an army. And the dead came. They poured through the breach like a black tide, climbing over fallen ice, bodies piling without care. They did not slow. They did not stop. They did not look back. Blue eyes glowed through snow like cruel lanterns. Behind them, White Walkers advanced in silence, their armor catching faint light like frosted glass. They moved like winter itself, inevitable, unhurried. On an icy ridge above the breach, the Night King watched. He did not raise his hands. He did not shout. He simply observed as his tide flowed south into the living world, calm as fate. The wall had been a promise for thousands of years. Now it was a ruin, and the long night at last stepped across the line. Winterfell swallowed strangers the way it swallowed snow, slowly, without warmth. The Golden Company filed into the yard in disciplined silence, boots crunching, breath steaming, eyes scanning ancient stone as if the castle might lunge. Their captain kept them tight, a hard-faced man with frost clinging to his lashes, helm tucked under one arm. The men behind him had the look of soldiers who had crossed seas and survived, yet cold made even survivors glance up like children hearing wolves. Sansa Stark watched from the gatehouse, her posture rigid, torchlight carving her face into sharp planes. Arianne Martell stood beside her in fur and leather, the sun spear on her shoulder made dim by snow, but her eyes were bright and unbending. "They came," Sansa said quietly, more to herself than to Arianne. "They came because Jon Snow forced them," Arianne replied, "and because fear is honest when pride is not." Below, Tormund Giantsbane spat over the battlement, disdainful. "Southron sellswords," he muttered, loud enough for the cold to carry. "They'll freeze and call it betrayal." Arianne did not look at him. "If they freeze," she said, "we bury them. If they fight, we feed them. Either way, we use what arrives." Sansa's eyes flicked to her, measuring. "You speak like a ruler," she said. "I am one," Arianne answered, simple as steel. The Golden Company captain halted in the yard and looked up, squinting against falling snow. He offered a stiff bow toward the gatehouse, formal, careful, the bow of a man who knew courtesy was armor in a wolf den. Sansa's voice carried down. "Winterfell will shelter you," she called. "Winterfell will feed you. Winterfell will also watch you. If you steal from my people, you will lose the hand you stole with." A ripple went through the northern guards, grim approval. The captain's mouth tightened. "Understood, Lady Sansa Stark," he called back. Arianne leaned slightly toward Sansa, voice low. "Let me speak to him," she murmured. "He will hear the south better from me." Sansa's jaw clenched once. Then she nodded. They descended, boots striking stone, and the yard's cold met them like a slap. The Golden Company men held their line, eyes flicking to Arianne's sunspear badge with wariness, as if Dorne itself were a snake in snow. Arianne stopped a few paces from the captain and let her gaze settle on him like judgment. "Your name," she said. "Ser Rolly Duckfield," he answered, voice rough, respectful. "Captain, under King Aegon Targaryen's command." Arianne's eyes narrowed. "Then you will learn a new command," she said. "You serve the living now, not claims, not songs. The dead do not kneel." Rolly Duckfield held her gaze, and Jon's lesson sat behind his eyes, fear, and something like belief. "Aye," he said, "we've heard." Sansa looked past him, over the men, to the frozen treeline beyond Winterfell's walls. Snow fell heavier, steady and patient. Somewhere out there, the war was already walking,